All right, everyone. Hello, and welcome to another episode of The Aware Athlete. There is a saying, and that saying is if you know what you're doing, you can do what you want. So, we're going to talk about you being able to do what you want and how you do that. So, we're privileged to have as our guest today, we're going to really enjoy her story, Franziska Maria Pretsch. And
Thank you.
so you have a fascinating story and a lot to tell us, Franziska. And let's get started. You were born in Bavaria, and would you like to take it from there for a while?
Yeah, of course. I'm very happy to do that. Thank you for having me here. It's a real honor to be here. And,
Yeah,
you know,
I
um,
welcome to the show, and
yeah,
it
thank
is
you.
an honor to have you.
That's amazing. So, I was born in Bavaria, and sometimes it doesn't really say a lot to people. So I'm kind of always adding a little bit of information. It means very much close to the Alps. So when you see the sort of stereotypical alpine, beautiful kind of scenery and stuff. It's, as a matter of fact, very much like that. It's still, for me, it was growing up a real paradise. Like, I could run around the woods and climb trees and swim in the wild rivers and waters, and that's kind of how I grew up. Very much in nature, and also very close to family traditions and roots. And, it's very strong still over there. And not knowing at the time, but it kind of gave me a great foundation. I was mostly barefoot as well as a kid. I hated shoes. So I just have to say that because it's important for later.
Yes.
Um, and then, being in school and having a time where I very much tried to fit in, but wasn't really fitting in. I was never like into the mainstream, and I was like, I was a teenager who meditated. My dad taught me how to meditate very early on. Music. I was into being outdoors all the time and all that kind of stuff. So very much not so mainstream at the time, and really struggled for a while to find myself. And then carried on studying actually in the Alps in a little universities, social work and philosophy. So I have a degree in both of them. And I think it kind
So,
of set the
excuse
scene
me,
as well.
social work and what?
Philosophy.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So, and it's kind of like now I understand a little bit more about it, but it's really my curiosity about life, I would say, and really trying to understand what is life? Like, what is a good life? How do we actually live life? Like, for me, this whole setup of work 9 to 5 or work for years and then you retire and all that just didn't ring true for me somehow.
Right.
So, but that was the concept that I learned. So I had to kind of find my own way with this, like what is it? So, and I was never really good in English in school, and I was never good in sport. I have to say that too, because that's two things that I now do, that kind of, are in my life. So it's kind of funny when school tells you something and later on you find out it's actually not, not really true. But, at the time I believed it. And then I had an opportunity to go to Britain, to actually work there as a social worker, and I took the opportunity. It was a very big step for me. I was in my 20s, but it was the starting point to go out into the world and actually find out who I am, right? So I went on my own, not didn't know anyone, just went to Britain. There's a long story here, but I worked as a social worker. That was amazing, not because the work was not very nice oftentimes, but I met a lot of people. I heard a lot of life stories. I also saw a lot of really trauma and really bad situations of people. And it taught me a lot about life and how to stay calm in crisis, and, a lot of things that are really helpful even now. And coming to running. So, at that point, I had a very stressful job. Social work is very stressful, and I didn't really know how to deal with that. Luckily, I lived close to the beach at the time. And one day I just started running on the beach, like barefoot, just 5-10 minutes. Was never a runner, but I kind of just felt like that might help me to release some stress. And I did it really early in the morning so that no one would see me. Like I didn't want to be seen, right? Um, but it turned out that it was really good. And I thought, seeing the sunrise, being barefoot on the beach, great, like just continue. So I'm just going to do that. So every day I went in the morning to run. And of course, your body gets stronger. And it was longer and longer and longer. And I thought, this is amazing. That feels really good. Like I'm enjoying this. This is amazing. And so around 14 years ago, I think, I read the book Born to Run. Naturally, I came to that book, right? Mm-hmm. And totally, fascinated by Barefoot Ted and the whole Tarahumara story in Mexico and lunar sandals. And, I've always been a big believer of our ancestral roots and how we can take that, learn from that, and take it further, like use that knowledge and that wisdom of our ancestors to actually go further in life, right? And that fitted it so much, like the whole lunar sandals philosophy of learning that in Mexico and taking it into modern life and living it right now. That made total sense to me somehow. And so, I bought my first lunar sandals. That was 14 years ago. And never looked back. That's my footwear. Like I don't have shoes. I just wear lunar sandals or I go barefoot. That's kind of, from then on, that was it. And continued running. But I never really ran more than sort of half marathon was kind of the longest distance I did. And then, I had a journey I went back to Germany for a while, was with my granddad when he died. That was a big thing for me too, to be with him when he died and the whole reconnecting to my roots. And then went out into the world again. I lived in Spain as well for a bit. And there's all sorts of, big story here. And always ran everywhere in lunar sandals. That was my thing, right? And people obviously spoke about it. They were like, oh, this lady runs in sandals. It's amazing, like I had a reputation in every country that I went to. And then it was 2021, like end of 2021, I had a kind of crisis in my life. Continued, I have to say that too, continued working on myself. I had coaches, did my own, therapy, trained myself as a life coach and as a, constellation practitioner, and really developed my own approach as a coach. So when was that? Like over 10 years ago, I started working as a coach with people by myself. And running and the whole philosophy about barefoot and really finding your own path and your own footsteps and being strong and rooted in life, that's always been a theme in my work. But also the freedom, the freedom that I feel when I run and I don't rely on shoes and I can just go. And it's an amazing feeling. And then, 2021, end of 2021, I had a bit of a point in my life where, I wasn't really sure where to go. And I remember this because I sat at the fire and literally asked my ancestors. I said, I have no idea what I'm doing right now and where I'm going. So just put it out there. And then January 2022, I had messages with Barefoot Ted that we were kind of becoming friends on Facebook, and with somebody called Michael, who organizes the races in Mexico. And there was just such an impulse in me to say, go to Mexico and run that marathon there, run with the Tarahumara, and see what happens there. Yeah. And that, it was a huge step on my own, again, not knowing anyone there really. My family was like, now she's gone to Mexico and then she's going to run with the sandals. Like she's going to hurt herself. Oh my God, it was tough. But I did. I went to Mexico on my own, and joined the group that, Michael and Kimberly organized there. I met Barefoot Ted, and I completed the marathon, the whole marathon with the Tarahumaras.
50 miles?
Marathon. How much is that?
Well, a marathon is 26.2.
Yeah. So
They
that's
have
the one
they
that I
have a
did.
longer one there too, don't they?
I do have a longer one. So the thing is, so I didn't even train for a marathon. I was basically half marathon was the longest distance.
Yeah.
I went there, and as it came on the day, I felt like I could do it. So I did. I completed a whole marathon without training for it, which was kind of crazy for me. But yeah. And I mean the whole trip, I can just really say to people, just go on that trip. Just meeting people there in Mexico, the really Tarahumara, the running people, the natives there, and spend some time there and really be immersed in that, like, nature culture. It's just so beautiful there. So that's something that we're now plan to do very regularly, getting involved also in events there. So there's going to be more to come. That's the plan. And of course, Luna sandals. I mean, that was the thing, to run it, and to run with the running tribe in sandals. That was like a big thing. And then from that event, it happened that I had an invitation to go to America. And there is an event called Born to Run every year, where again, it's ultras and marathon, and people meet, and it's a great event. I love it. I did actually a podcast on that one too. And so 4 weeks later, I decided to take another jump and go to America and run that ultra. So that was 30 miles.
Uh-huh.
Which I did. And at that point also, I met somebody in Mexico, and we decided to run that ultra together, which we did. And this man is now my husband.
Yeah.
And he's actually from Mexican background. So we have a total mix in our whole thing. And we ran together. I mean, just running also together as a couple is just an amazing experience. It's just so, stretching, for sure, but also just so much fun. So we did that ultra in 2022, and then we did it again the year after as well. 2023 we did it. So yeah, and I'm here.
That's in Southern California.
Well, the run is in Southern California.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's a little tricky, finding somebody that you want to spend your life with. Can you tell us about how did that develop, so that you knew that was the thing?
Yeah, that's what I say to everybody that I also work with. It's about getting to know yourself and understanding where you come from and what makes you you, so that you really know when something nudges you inside of you, when something calls you, then you know that that's your true voice, and you really need to go and follow it. So that's kind of part of my work, that I help people to hear that in them, because having that trust in yourself and hearing that, that guides you through life and through anything that happens in life. Everything outside can change, but that in you is a rootedness that is carrying you through everything. And luckily I have that, and my husband has that too. He's very strongly connected in himself. And so when we met, I think we both kind of knew there was something special. And we're very strong people. We're very we have our own lives before, so different cultures, but we just knew we could make it work. And we knew that if we make it work, we have something really strong and really special. And that's what we have. I think we always say we kind of wanted always a relationship where we can be ourselves and where we can be free. And that's what we're doing for each other. And it's a very special thing. I'm very grateful.
I'm very happy to hear that.
Thank you.
Happy to hear that for both of you.
Thank you.
I was married for a very long time.
Yeah.
Years. We hoped it would be longer, but it wasn't.
Mm. And she was very special. I mean, I had a few messages with her over the years, and
Yeah,
it was beautiful. Yeah.
she was.
Mm.
So uh, you practiced a little bit in Britain, so you could speak some English or a lot of English, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe, yeah,
Mhm.
you had that pretty well mastered.
Yeah, well, that was, so we learned English in school in Germany. And then I always wanted to learn the language much better. So I listened to English music. I had a few friends that spoke English. So I'm kind of immersed myself into it. And then when I moved to England, you have to learn it very quickly. So that's how it went. But then when I came to America, of course, British English is very different to American English. So
Yeah,
yeah, it's
I
kind of
mean,
funny.
you've got your foundation, but it's different.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So then you had spent some time in Spain,
Mhm.
and then you went to Mexico,
Mhm.
but you didn't live in Mexico.
No, no, we didn't live in Mexico. That's where kind of, his family is from. So now I'm learning Spanish.
Hmm.
And obviously I'm much more into the culture because of his family, which I mean, I love. It's such a rich culture as well. And I think, funny enough, we find a lot of similarities around like the Bavarian culture and the Mexican culture in terms of family and traditions and food. And there's a lot there, which is really, nice. Yeah.
Yeah, I have wanted to visit the Copper Canyons. Haven't done
You
it
should
yet.
go. It's so amazing.
For a while, for several years, I had sandals that were very thin, made out of very thin Vibram material,
Mm-hmm.
and they really weren't much more than barefoot
Mm-hmm.
because even if the ground was really really rough,
You
you
could
weren't
feel it.
were just a little bit better than barefoot.
Yeah.
So, and then I do have Luna sandals, and those are much easier to traverse any terrain in.
Yeah.
Um, they tend to be a lot thicker. And the Tarahumara are not interested, as I understand it, in the thinnest sandals possible so they can be the most barefooted they can. They're more interested in sandals that are appropriate for the canyons that they live in.
Yeah, because I mean, running there is not so easy. Like, I was amazed that like so Luna sandals had kind of the thicker ones with the thicker thread on it, which was really helpful because the stones and everything is very tricky actually to run. And so, and they do so many miles. I mean, it's incredible what distances they do. So they really do need a little bit of support so that their feet are coping with that. But it's, I mean, all ages. That's the beautiful thing. They all run together. It's the kids and the women and the men. And then, I ran the marathon with some older ladies, like that just ran next to me with their skirts. And it was a beautiful interaction of like me with the sandals. They looked at my sandals and were like, "Oh, she's running in sandals too. That's cool." So we were kind of running together for a while and stuff. So that's really nice. That's a beautiful thing.
The running community, and especially the ultra running community, is pretty special.
Yeah, very special people. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about the both the spiritual and the physical aspects of running, and we'll talk about your work if you don't mind.
Of
And
course.
so let's get into if you're a runner, you're interested certainly in the physical aspects of running. And you mentioned earlier that people say that running will ruin your knees. And go ahead and comment on that, and maybe I will too, since I have older knees than you do.
Yeah. So when I started running, that was the kind of thing I heard. You're gonna ruin your knees. It's gonna be bad for your body. Uh, you're not gonna sustain it long term. All that kind of stuff. And what I found is, first of all, I ran barefoot in the beginning. I have some pretty good body awareness where I know when, I have to adjust a little bit, or I mean, my body does it automatically. I can even feel it sometimes when I run in sand, or in kind of unstable kind of paths a little bit. My body just automatically adjusts. I can feel that, and that's a beautiful thing. It's really a natural kind of way.
Okay,
And
now
then,
not everybody has that.
yeah, and I think that comes from being barefoot, and actually also the sandals, to have mostly I run in very thin sandals. And it gives me a real feeling for the ground, and it gives me a feeling from, I land differently to people that run in shoes. I run much more forefront. And it's a natural way of moving. So that's what I believe as well. That's why I haven't had any injury over 20 years, because it's just something that is naturally developing in my body. Of course, it does take longer. Like, it takes a while for your body to do that and to build it up. And also the skin. I mean, when you go barefoot, it's skin included. Like, that has to adjust to everything. And, then you have the cold, and you have the sun and the rain and everything. So you feel everything more, but your body adjusts to it. And what you get is, I think, a much more resilient, strong body because of that.
Mm-hmm.
And body awareness. I mean, you mentioned awareness. It's definitely, I'm aware when I run. I'm much more aware where I tread and how I step on earth than people with shoes. Definitely.
Yeah, I definitely think that's true. You have to, uh, if you run barefoot on pavement, assuming that the pavement is not topped off with fresh little lava rocks that cut and hurt,
Mm.
but on pavement that you can run on with a few little rocks,
Yeah.
you run completely different than you run in shoes. There's no pounding on your feet. Your
Yeah.
hips and your torso and your pelvic rotation and all of that stuff has to be there a lot more,
Yeah.
because again, on these very, very rough surfaces, you can't push down into those rocks. You have to have a different sense of them. So
Yeah.
yeah,
You
I
run
think that
lighter, I think.
yeah, I think that running barefoot really does teach things that other things don't. And then people used to suggest that you run barefoot in grass, which is number one, that could be dangerous because you can't see any holes
Absolutely.
or anything that's thrown out in the grass.
Mhm.
But number two is you're not getting the sensory feedback that you get if you allow a little bit of roughness. And
Yeah. Very true.
so yeah, there's a big difference. I think that really running on rough surfaces like that can keep you from being injured, because you have to use all of your body, not just your completely padded feet.
Yeah. And isn't that a great metaphor for life as well? I sometimes say, like, the rough roads, there's sometimes those roads where you learn the most. Like,
Rough
it's
road
not
is
like in life, when you have like rough times in your life, that's when you learn the most, and that's where you develop your muscles
yeah
also the most. Because if you just run, through smooth kind of grass or whatever, you will never have the muscles that you need to develop when it's kind of more difficult. So that's why the tough times, even when they feel really tough and challenging, that's really where it counts, when you get through them and you learn from it and you grow.
yeah so the traditional wisdom is that you should buy better shoes, you should
Yeah.
stretch a lot, you should strengthen yourself, you should do drills.
Mm.
uh, So let's go ahead and comment. We already commented on better shoes. It's not necessarily better.
Yep.
And to me, well, okay, so you're talking about the body awareness that you have that I think is essential. It's
Mm.
absolutely essential. It's essential in life to have
Absolutely.
awareness.
Yeah.
Uh, and that is all drowned out not only by shoes, but by the idea that you have to overcome everything with strength. So if you're doing something that's not quite right, which is not considered anyway, but if you're doing something that's not quite right, you just, instead of learning how to do it better or improve, you get so strong that you can do a little bit more of it anyway. That's
Yeah.
it's
Yeah. Yeah.
and the learning, there is a learning connection with strengthening, but it's very weak compared to awareness and learning, direct learning and sensing your body. So this is in direct opposition to the conventional wisdom about running. And even with drills, well, some of the exercises that they have you do, which I won't comment on individually right now, I spent a lot of time in physical therapy as a physical therapist assistant, and now I'm a Feldenkrais practitioner. But yeah, some of them are will teach you how not to run. In other words, they will teach you how to immobilize your pelvis when you run, even ask you to do that.
Wow.
And then some of it with drills, I find that the drill might help if you know what you're doing, but the drill itself doesn't teach you how to run. In fact, the drill itself will probably teach you how to overemphasize one particular aspect of running, like extreme hip flexion. That's in a lot of the skipping drills and so on. But your running has to embody all these things together: hip extension, hip flexion, pelvic rotation. That's all got to be a harmony. So any drill might be of some use if you know what you're doing, and you know that that's not teaching you how to run. It might be teaching you to just be a little bit more aware of something that you were lacking, but you still have to bring that into a harmony in your whole person. So could you say a few words about conventional wisdom versus awareness and learning and body sensing?
I mean, I think, awareness is really in every area of our life. That's what helps us to get through much quicker. Being aware of what triggers us, for example, being aware of emotions that come up. Or, a lot of times my work is around fears. Like, why do you have that fear, that particular fear that comes up all the time? And people take it very much for granted. It's like, yeah, but everybody feels that. So that's normal. Or, just push through. Like you said earlier, in terms of strengths, just push through. It's okay, And for me, it's a lot more like, so let's look into why does it come up? When is it there and why does it come up? Like, when you know why it comes up, then you can choose a different approach, right? But only when you have awareness. So, I also work with couples, and a lot of times they don't have any awareness in what dynamic they are together. And they repeat the same conflict time and time and time again, because none of them know that actually this behavior and this behavior lead to that dynamic, or this kind of way of saying something triggers the other person, blah, blah, blah. So I bring awareness to that. And as soon as you have awareness, it changes, because you're like, oh, I'm doing this. I don't have to do this. I can actually choose something different. So in terms of movement and running, I think when we let our body guide us, when we're actually going back to very simple things like the barefoot running, like barefoot moving, and trusting our body, we can actually retrain to move more natural. But the problem is often that people are so far ahead already in having cushioned shoes and having artificial things around them that the body's wisdom is very quiet, and it's hard to actually go back to that when you actually go so far the other way. And it also takes time. So I have a lot of people when they come and interested in lunar sandals, they go, yeah, well, I tried it. I ran like 5 miles and it hurts.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, if you go from shoes straight into running in sandals,
Mhm.
it's gonna hurt because your feet and your muscles are not there. Like you're used to cushion
Mhm.
and you don't have that anymore. So it doesn't mean something is wrong. It just means that with awareness, you have to kind of go back to these natural movements and develop those muscles. And I find it's the same in life. Like if you're used to doing it a certain way and always, following other people more than yourself, or following, the fears that, are blown up oftentimes, on social media and what have you. If you follow that, you very much create a life that is in that direction. I think the power is when you're aware of that and you take it back and you say, hey, hang on, what's actually the natural way? What's actually my intuition also saying? What's there? And that's when change happened.
Yeah, absolutely. It's something that in years past, I've been a Feldenkrais practitioner for quite a while, and I started the training in 2010, and
Mm-hmm.
and it ended in 2014. But something that it had really not occurred to me before, which is somewhat obvious now, is that thinking that doesn't produce better action is not thinking. He called it a couple of things, but he called it mere cerebration,
Mm-hmm.
running things over and over, with
Yeah. Yeah.
and yeah, thinking that doesn't produce better action is not thinking at all.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And I think there's a huge tendency to overthink
Mhm.
and to, this is what I see a lot in my clients, like this whole stuckness of overthinking and then not making a decision because you're scared to make the wrong choice. And of course there's a lot of things behind it. Like you learn a lot of things from growing up. You learn, you are a certain way because of family things and stuff. But a general, I think we're lacking often a general coming back to just the simple thing, like even 10 minutes a day, taking some quiet time and just calming your whole system down and really listening. And so what do I do today? What's important? What's my priority? I'm a big believer of helping people to find the priorities in their life and what matters to them. And some often people don't even know, like this should matter to me, or this should matter to me. What really matters to you, not what it should, but what is important. Because life is not endless. At some point, our time is up, right?
Right.
So it's so important to ask yourself those questions early so that you can really decide, okay, what am I going to do with my time? Because the time is precious.
Yeah. So our thoughts actually, you're talking about being quiet.
Mm.
So that doesn't mean sitting down and letting your mind chatter.
Well, again, this whole approach to meditation is often what traps people up. Like
Yes.
I can really see that. I have clients that come to me, they go, I've done meditation since 2 years and nothing has changed.
Mm.
And it's such a rigidness. Like I have to sit every day for this amount of time and my mind should be totally empty. And if it's not, I'm gonna get
Yeah.
cross with me. I'm overdoing it. But you
Mhm.
know, for me, it's much more a way of I'm starting the day with awareness and I'm going to sit and just be present, maybe out in nature, maybe here inside. But I just open myself to that day
Mhm.
and see what's there. And then I also see, maybe there are some fears or some thoughts that are in my mind, and I just let them pass. And I, see what I can do with them. But it's nothing that I allowed to have control over me. I
Yes.
just, I'm in flow with that. And that's kind of my approach. And when I work with clients, it's often that opens them again to something like, I call it a check in. I mean, you can call it whatever you want, but it's that kind of daily time that you then carry into your day, that presence, that awareness, you carry that into your day.
Yeah. So if you say that I've meditated for 2 years and it did nothing for me, that gets down to, I mean, you could relate that to running or anything else in life.
Yeah.
You could say, I've pushed myself harder and harder to and trained more and more, and I got nowhere.
Yeah.
And part of the problem with that, I think, is that if you meditate to get somewhere, if you meditate because you want to feel perfect right now, so I'm meditating, so I should feel perfect.
Yeah.
Then you miss the whole point.
Expectations. Yeah.
Expectations, right? Rather than the process of acceptance and putting aside that which is not thinking.
Absolutely. And we talked about it earlier. We talked about my wish to do like running at a high age as well, like to keep running. And I think that, I see this in a lot of people. They run, maybe push themselves for a while, and then they lose the momentum, that like they stop. And then, their bodies get older and it's harder to start again. And, it's this whole thing, like it doesn't work. And I see a lot of people that run barefoot or in sandals. They just enjoy running.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not for, anything like you have to do races all the time or prove something, but you're just in the moment and you enjoy, as we say, enjoy the journey, right? Like enjoy the whole process. And I think that's how I take it. I want to be able to just have fun with it and enjoy it. For me, it's not just an exercise or I have to do it because I have to go somewhere and get somewhere or whatever. But it's just being out there on my own or with my husband, enjoying it and moving our bodies. And, that's it.
Yeah. And it's not hard.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of aspects to this. And one of the things that runners, as we've been saying, get into trouble with is because you have to have life as it is rather than as you construct it or want it to be. I mean, it's not that you can't have anything you want, but I've never heard a Vietnam veteran say this before, but in an interview, he was saying that he was held in an 8x8 cage for 6 years or something like that. And he said it was the best thing that ever happened to him because he learned to accept life as it is, not as he wanted it to be in the moment. And so that's why I hear runners ask the question, well, should I run today because I've had this or that in my foot or something? And that's a question you can answer for yourself pretty easily, unless you're living in some kind of an expectation, or unless you haven't learned to ask yourself. You're always asking somebody else, the doctor or
Yeah.
So there's two things here. There's one thing, if you understand it, and that may take time. I like somebody said, it takes time. Awareness or living in the present moment takes time until you realize that it doesn't take time.
Yes.
So that's actually true. The struggle to realize that things don't take time. You just set the intention for the day and don't mess with it.
Yes. Yeah.
And so, but in terms of actually getting better at running, there is a little process there. But in terms of getting to the foundation to getting better, there is no process. If you understand that there is no process, you enjoy it.
Yeah.
And if you move from there, everything proceeds.
Absolutely. It's like, it's also a trust in ourselves. I feel like, that's a big one in my work. Like I say, you trust your path. Like, that's also in this whole thing with everything that's included, all the times when it feels challenging, all the times like the storms that are in your life, you know, you go through it and you become a different person. And that's also part of being alive, that we're moved, that we're changed, that we're growing, that, you know, our heart breaks. You know, somebody said to me once, when we grieve, it just shows that we've lost something very much.
Yeah.
It's not a bad thing. But as soon as you dare to love, you include that you will lose that thing, that you will lose that person at some point.
Yeah.
That's just included in loving something.
Yeah.
And so there's always a risk in life. We always risk something. We never know exactly the outcome of something. That's just part of being alive. And I think it's to trust yourself to every time take the next step, whatever shows up. And but also at the same time to really know in your heart what's important to you, to focus on those things. That's how I found it. You know, when I met my husband, it was kind of a recognition. We recognized each other. Like he was exactly like that too. And for me at that point, it was like, I don't even care how old I am. I don't care. Like some people said, oh, that was late in your life that you met somebody. And I'm like, so what? I met somebody like that. That's important. Like some other people never find anything like that in their life. Okay, you know, I had to move to America. I have, you know, I live far away from home. He's a different culture than me. And so there was a lot of stuff that we had to work on. But at the same time, we know what we have and we know how precious that is. And, you know, including eventually having to grieve for that. That's just part of life.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's that obviously becomes an even deeper conversation. But I think that's also something for me with running. It just shows you not every day is the same. You go out, you take the first step, you let it run, you let it, you know, move by itself, you go into the rhythm and you go as far as you can on that day. And then sometimes you run in the rain and you get totally soaked and you have to fight it to come back and it's cold and what have you. But you showed up, you were out there. And
Yeah,
you
that's important.
yeah, yeah. So, and then you have the runs they're super easy as well. You know, it's like every day is different. And that's what I learned about life from running, really, that it's okay. You don't have to have every day the same, but important it is that you show up and that you're there.
It is, yeah.
Mm.
That reminds me of a quick story. About 14 years ago, I was going through clinicals to be a PTA,
Mm-hmm.
and one of them wasn't going very well.
Mm-hmm.
The clinic seemed very chaotic, and they were working with a number of people at a time, and I was new in there, and I just couldn't seem to keep up with all of it. And I was just, you know, I invested so much in this, and it just didn't seem like maybe I was going to make it.
Mm-hmm.
And I went out after having, you know, you have to have some evaluations during that time, and it was raining, and it was windy, and I completed a track workout against the wind and in the rain, and I felt like a different person because I had showed up for that.
Yeah.
And it had reaffirmed life.
Yeah.
You know, there was something that I showed up for, and I was there. I did it. I accomplished it. Not that I don't even remember the times, but I was there. I remember the difference it made.
Yeah, you made the feeling. You remember the feeling.
I
And
remember
this is the thing, you know, sometimes we're called. We're called to something, to show up, to be there for someone, to be there for ourselves, whatever it is. And these are the moments that we remember. These are the moments that also make us to who we are. So, you know, I had a lot of moments already in my life like that. And, you know, I probably will have many more because I'm very much into that. I'm kind of looking for those moments. I'm looking for how can I show up even more and do my bit in the world, you know, like that's a big thing for me. I think the next generation, we have an obligation to them.
Yeah.
And whatever we can to give to them, to you know, take them further, pave the way for them, whatever you call it, and to give them that self-trust that they will need to, to go through an ever-changing world.
Did you have a sense of loss when you left Bavaria and you left all that behind? It was a beautiful place.
Yeah, I mean, I go there to visit. I mean, I love my family. I talk to my parents and my grandma all the time. Like, I'm very attached. I even have this is a little Mama Bavaria. That's like a statue from my home country.
Mm.
So it's very present for me. I'm still very much in those roots, in those culture. I do, every time I make a tea from fresh herbs, I think of my great grandma who did that herself. I bake stuff from home. So it's very present for me, but it's also something that I recognize that we are also called out to go out into the world and actually learn from each other. Like it can't be just in my little place, and if that's okay, everything is fine. We're also having a bigger responsibility for the world and nature, and how we all live together. And I don't think we're doing very well right now, to be
Yeah.
honest.
Yeah.
But it's definitely something that we need to come back to be much more united.
Right. So you run ultras, and that sort of wraps up what we're talking about here, showing up, and what have ultras meant to you?
I think ultras, again, it's like they bring you to a point where you think you can't do it anymore. They
Yeah.
really bring you to points where you're like, okay, I mean, I know it's another 10 miles or something. I'm dying. Like I can't go anymore. And this is the beauty when you run together, because then one of you will say, no, 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 we're not stopping here. We're going to continue. Come on, And that's a beautiful thing, to show up for each other and say, I know you have it. I know you can do it. So let's keep going. And this is how I feel for life too. Like when you have been through a few ultras, you know that you can go far. You just trust yourself a lot more, and you trust your body as well. Like for me, it's like I know my body can hurt and whatever, but it can recover and it's going to be fine. So that's a real amazing foundation for life. That's why I say, like, if you find things that stretch you and and show you how much more there is in you, that's whether that's running or not, but that's the thing to do. Like really give yourself that experience. But ultras, they show you a different world, I think. And people are amazing. Like there's so many quirky people in the ultra world, and special characters and strong people, and it's a beautiful community.
I agree. I've only done a couple 50Ks, but there's three parts that you can break that down into. One, am I actually going to do this? So you commit to doing it.
Yes.
And then there's the middle of it, where someplace in there you're saying, why am I doing this?
Why did
Because
I
it's hard.
decide to do this? Yeah.
And then there is the end where you say, I didn't know I could do quite that much.
Yeah. And then actually the fourth part is an hour later after you finished, and you go, oh, that wasn't so bad. I can
Yeah.
do it again.
Yeah. Yeah, because there is a place where you say, don't ask me about doing it again.
Yeah, I know. And then it
Yeah.
switches pretty quickly again, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now we all want to have these moments in life where we learn something. So I can think of a couple of those. One is there's a very steep trail around here. It goes down about 2,000 feet in a mile or two. Probably less, maybe 2 miles. But and by being out there enough, I had learned enough things that I could run down that over the obstacles and stuff. And when I got down to the bottom, my knees felt better than ever. And it was just a really great experience to be old and be able to run down that trail.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and it involves learning because if you don't do it quite right, then
Mm.
it's not as much fun.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely.
And then everybody's always in asking the question, how can I get faster, especially if you're as old as I am. And it's not so much about, for some people, it's about competing. For me, it's just about to go a little bit faster. I could be doing this with more people.
Hmm. Hmm.
But and so the aspect to that is again learning, because you can get all kinds of tips, and they may, excuse me, they may be accurate or not, or helpful or not, but it's all about experimenting. So it's all about being in many, many different moments. And then you find something that does kind of work.
Yeah. Yeah.
And and you get to ask the question, okay, I went a little faster, but it was too muscular. It's too
Mm.
much effort. How can I do the same thing with less effort?
Lighter. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I love what you say about experimenting. I think that's a total, we don't always allow ourselves to experiment and to actually find out what's there. I mean, failures are not really failures, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
They're really learning experiences, and you can grow and do it differently next time. And then, you might be able to do stuff, or, maybe you do it a totally different way, or it's just if you never even try, you will never find out.
That's right. Yeah.
So that's what you said earlier about thinking, overthinking it as well. I think we're all a bit different. Like it's important to get to know you and understand yourself, how it works, how your body works, how what foods are working for you, all that kind of stuff. So a natural curiosity, I think, and staying a learner all your life. I think that's really important because that makes you grow naturally.
Yeah, I think so. Learning is uh, one one of the essences of living.
Absolutely. I mean, my grandma is going to be 94, and she still says, "Oh, yeah, I've learned that the other day." And I love when she says that because I'm thinking,
Yeah.
she's been through so much, she has so much life experience, and she still learns. And that's it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's the thing. See, if you see a child learning how to walk or learning how to
Mm,
do something, a lot of times they'll laugh after they learned it
yep. Yeah.
because it was delightful to them.
Yeah,
And you're
absolutely.
talking about someone who's 94, you said, and is
Nice.
still and
Yeah.
is still having that same experience, and we can have that
Yeah.
through life.
Yeah. Not to fear. I think a lot of times it's the fear of not being able to do it, and then what will people say, or do I look ridiculous and make a fool of myself? And I've taken a few steps in my life where I'm thinking I just jumped in. I had no idea. Like, and then you find out how you can do it. It's like there is a certain ability. It's almost like to be a child in some way and just say, you know what, I'm gonna go for this and we will see what happens, you know?
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. So, Franziska, you do life coaching.
Yeah,
That's primarily what you do now.
yeah. Hmm.
And I do a lot of things that can help with movement.
Hmm.
Uh, Feldenkrais was amazing. He invented hundreds of movement lessons, and really, there's only one. Some of them are so specific that they could very very quickly help you learn how to do something that's functional. But really, there is only one lesson, and it's there. All the lessons are just about awareness. And so, could you tell people how they can get in touch with you? You want to say another word or two about your work with people and how
Yeah,
they can get in
absolutely.
touch with you and how they can benefit from working with you?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Um, so yeah, life coach, mentor, it's sometimes hard to put a word to it because I've done so many different things over the last 20 years. But it really is, you can work with me online, and I'm supporting you in really that inner deep connection to yourself, first of all, and that inner awareness. When we talk about awareness, think that's a big one, to understand like what makes you you and what supports you in whatever you're going through right now in your life. And that's the self-awareness, the awareness of where you're at in life, developing a deeper trust, really understanding how to listen and to really hear that in yourself. We talked about that too. A rootedness. I go a lot into your own ancestral roots, your culture, your family, because that also makes you who you are. And then, to go forward in life, sort of what kind of life you really want to live. And, and I do that with couples too. As I said earlier, I work systemically. That really means I look at the whole dynamic that is going on between people. I'm fascinated by that because we can come from totally different backgrounds and, have a certain dynamic together. And then you can change that in an instant when you're aware of what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
So, as couples, that really brings change like very, very quickly. And it also develops trust between people. So the easiest way to reach me, I guess, is just sending an email. It's info@franpretsch.com. It's also my website is www.franpretsch.com. We can maybe share that under this video. And also social media. I'm pretty present on social media, Facebook and Instagram under my name. And I share a lot of free stuff. Like I do a lot of videos, posts, just trying to really support people in like living a more rooted life, being strong in yourself, and practicing awareness and being more present in life. Yeah. And obviously Luna Sandals is also a big part of what I support.
Yeah, you have a Luna Sandal link also.
Yes.
I'll try to post that.
That's
and
great.
Okay, so that's FRANPRETSCH.com.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, and I will post that.
Okay.
And I will also post a couple links about what I do.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
okay.
I think anything that helps us to live in a better way and to be more aware of ourselves and the world, that's what we need right now. So
that's for sure what we need right now. So
thank you.
Franziska, I want to really thank you. I have truly enjoyed this conversation.
Yeah, me too. Thank you. It's a real honor.